Members of the public in the public gallery or viewing the live stream, and welcome to this meeting of the Employment and Staffing Committee. My name is Councillor Sally Ann Hart and I'm chairing this meeting, and my Vice Chair is Councillor Anna Bradman. I will introduce other attendees when I invite them to speak. Those in the chamber are reminded that the meeting is being live streamed. By your presence here in the chamber and via video conference, you are deemed to have consented to being filmed and to the use of images and sound recordings for a webcast and archived recording. May I ask those of you joining us remotely to ensure that their camera and microphone remain off unless they are addressing the committee. And for those of us present in the room, please ensure your microphone is close to you and speak clearly when addressing the room. So item number 1 on our agenda today is apologies. Lawrence, are there any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. No apologies for absence received today.
Thank you. And item number 2 are declarations of interest. Do any members have interest to declare in relation to any item of business on the agenda? And if I just can remind you, if an interest subsequently becomes apparent later in the meeting, please would you raise it at that point. So now we move on to the minutes of the previous meeting. Do members have any suggested amendments relating to the accuracy of the minutes for the meeting held on the 9th of November 2023? Therefore, I move approval of these minutes as a true and accurate record. The committee therefore agrees the approval of the minutes of the meeting on the 9th of November 2023 as a true and accurate record by affirmation. And I'll sign those at the end.
Approved.
Thank you. Item number 4, public questions. There have been no questions from members of the public accepted for this meeting. So now we move on to item number 5 on the agenda, and this relates to the update on the 4-day week trial. And please can I invite Anna Ainsworth to present this report.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just before I present this report, I would just like to draw members' attention to a minor typo that we just need to clarify. This is in the recommendations in the report under item F. In there, we talk about, it's the second line from the end, up until the end of March 2023, and information about the ongoing effectiveness. That should be March 2024. Just for clarity for the committee, and apologies for that. We were very cross with ourselves for not recognising that amendment.
Excuse me, Anne, would you mind just bringing the microphone a little bit closer to you? Thank you.
Is that better?
That's a lot better, thank you.
Thank you. So just with regards to the report itself, so just a reminder for members, what have we done so far? So in January 2023, we started a desk-based trial, and members will remember we did a 3-month trial at that point, and then it was agreed that we would continue with a desk-based trial for a year, and that year will end in March 2024. In September 2023, we started the WASTE trial. The purpose of the trials was to help us attract and keep talented colleagues in what is an incredibly competitive local employment market. We know that there are hard-to-fill jobs in local authorities across the country, but we also know that in South Cambridgeshire, partly linked to cost of living, we have some particular challenges with regards to recruitment. We also wanted to improve our services by filling vacant posts permanently rather than relying on expensive agency staff. Linked to that, we wanted to reduce costs, and we also wanted to support the health and well-being of our colleagues, which we know helps us deliver good services. How have the trials gone? So performance in terms of our KPIs have been maintained, and in some cases they were improved. We had a very smooth waste round reorganisation, and I must continue to give credit to my colleagues, to Bode and the team, and those colleagues who helped with the reorganisation of those rounds. Anyone who's been involved in that type of piece of work will know it is incredibly complicated, and there's so many opportunities for things to not go quite right. And the fact that that has gone as smooth as it has, all credit to my colleagues for that. We have attracted people to posts that were previously hard to fill, and we have reduced agency costs. Just with regards to the recommendations in the report, as you can see from the recommendations, we want to undertake a consultation on the 4-day week. We need to do that after we understand whether there are any financial implications with regards to a 4-day week. That was mentioned within the government's local government financial settlement consultation, and we need some more information on that before we can do a meaningful consultation. Once we have that information, we will be able to complete that consultation. We want to ask Cabinet ultimately, and for any comments today from committee, to continue with a 4-day week waste collection rounds and method of working. We want to collect more data. That trial obviously hasn't been running as long as the desk-based trial, and we would like to get more information and more data from continuing that particular trial. As part of that, we want to harmonise the working hours of desk-based staff and colleagues in our waste services and move to everyone working a 32-hour week. And we also want to continue with the current working practices for desk-based staff in line with the current 4-day working week to keep that going until such time, along with the waste trial, as we have further data information and the consultation so that members can make an ultimate decision. And we want to come back to this committee and also to Cabinet and full Council within South Cambridgeshire, and also go to a committee at the City with more information in July when we're able to have analysed the data from the desk-based trial, continue to collect data from the waste trial, and be able to feed back to members at that point what that information is telling us about both trials. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Just to remind members, it's our role here to review the report and to make comment on the report. So members, do we have any questions, any comments? Yes, Councillor Mark Howell.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I'm just logging in. I've just been logged out, so just bear with me. I want to, paragraph 10 under the recommendations, I think this is on page 12, and I specifically want to ask a question about D, subsection D. Could you just expand upon that from my own knowledge, please? I have several other questions as well, Chairman. Page 12, paragraph D. Has somebody got an answer?
Sorry, I'm just wondering, this is the paragraph on page 12, paragraph D, Cabinet approves for all colleagues working a 4-day week, the one to do with the hours being harmonised. Yes. Can you just check that? Who's going to ask that question?
Sorry, Chairman, I also the holidays, yes.
Sorry?
The holidays as well.
The holidays as well. Yeah. Can that come to you, Jeff?
Yes, indeed, the holidays will be apportioned based upon the new breakdown, so that they'll be based on people working 32 hours rather than 37.
Yes, Councillor Howe.
So if somebody gets a 20 days holiday per year plus their 8 statutory days, the 8 statutory days obviously remain, I'm assuming, but no?
No, what happens is that annual leave is apportioned, so reduced by the hours that the percentage of hours they're not working. Oh, sorry, yes. Yes, their annual leave is apportioned, so it would be reduced based upon their reduced number of working hours. And then rather than getting statutory days, and if you're talking about bank holidays, for example, no, they don't get that. Instead, they get, for someone who works full-time, they get that one day off, that non-working day every week. So if, for example, somebody normally has a non-working day on a Friday, but there's a bank holiday that Monday, that bank holiday becomes their non-working day instead. So that week they will work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So they don't get specific bank holidays in addition to their annual leave.
Can I just come back to the actual holidays themselves? So if somebody is on a 20 days holiday, and I'm just using that as an example, what would that go down to, please? And I appreciate it's hours, but you know.
I'm going to take the easy option, if it's right, and assume somebody normally gets 10 days holiday and that there was a 20% reduction. What that would mean is they get 8 days holiday instead of 10 days. It's obviously, because they're moving to 32 hours, it's a bit more complicated. I'm not going to try and do that maths in my head. Councillor Howell, if that's okay.
That's fine. Okay, thank you.
Did you have another Are you okay for me to come back to you? So, because I'm mindful that other members might ask the same question that you might be asking as well. Councillor Richard Stobart.
Chair, thank you. I've got several things that I'd like to talk about, but if I could take them one by one, maybe that would be okay. So the first is really a comment and a reflection. So I think when I started work, 1975, when I was first salaried, I was working 37.5 hours a week. And I was just reflecting on the fact that just pre-First World War, it was quite typical for manual and clerical workers to be working 66 hours a week. And of course that was pre-IT, you know, and the systems then were different and concerns were different. But, you know, in those 60 years, up to 1975, we saw almost a 50% reduction in the working week. And since 1975 to today, we've seen nothing, zero. And yet, in that time, we've had several revolutions, not least of which is the digital revolution, which has made information available. Working practices can change. And I think the exercise that we've been going through as South Cambridge District Council is illustrative of some of the potential that's been kind of locked away all of those years and that has now emerged. But I just want to say, to end my first comment, is that the settling on 32 hours is, I think, an intriguing outcome of, if you will, learning by doing. So our colleagues have done a tremendous job getting the desk-based trial to work, getting the waste trial to work, and we should say that the waste trial has involved some very sophisticated processes to re-optimise the waste collection routes. But actually running as a kind of, if you will, ribbon through all of this has been the kind of things that IT and computing makes possible. So we've converged at something that's very satisfactory. It's much less than my 37.5, well, it's less than 37.5 hours a week, but at 86.5% of the old working week, it's kind of sensible. It's settled at a sensible value. And I have to commend the council on kind of doing all this stuff and coming up with, you know, working hours which not only achieves the objective of a 4-day week, but actually has, in a sense, encompassed the entire operation of the council. So great stuff. And I just say this is a very significant step forward. We are realising some of the productivity gains that have been hidden and untapped. And I'm pleased that the South Cambs is an exemplar of this stuff. So, yeah, a comment really, and I hope I've touched on some of the main points.
And thank you for that. It's almost sort of feels to me a bit sort of organic, the way it's happened. So did you also have a question that you wanted to ask? Just a comment.
Chair, thank you. No, I haven't got a question just yet. It's coming.
It's coming, thank you. Councillor Sunita Hansraj.
So I have a comment and a question. Is that okay?
That's fine.
So I'll start with the question. Do binmen who, prior to this trial, who used to work bank holidays get unsocial hour pay? Are they losing out?
Can I refer to my colleague Bode to answer that question, if that's okay, Bode?
Thank you, Jeff. Sorry, I didn't quite understand the question. Please, could you repeat it?
Okay, so bank holiday working, for example, Sunday working is classified as unsocial hours. By changing the rota so they don't work a bank holiday, are they losing out on their unsocial hours? Or did you not pay it in the first place?
No, we didn't pay for unsocial hours in the past. No, not as far as I'm aware.
I beg your pardon?
We didn't pay for unsocial hours working in the past. No, so we haven't changed anything in that respect.
Okay.
No.
Could I just ask, my understanding of what you're saying, Bode, is that we didn't actually ask them to work unsociable hours. That's why they weren't paid for unsociable hours.
Yes.
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 Okay.
So drivers and loaders didn't typically work on weekends. It was the exception. So in the past, if there was a bank holiday and they then had to work on a weekend to catch up, then they will be paid overtime for that. But that was the exception rather than the norm. So they didn't ordinarily work on social hours as a matter of routine, no.
Thank you. And you had a question?
I have a comment.
A comment, thank you.
Okay, so in 1980, Margaret Thatcher wouldn't pay nurses any more money, so our hours were reduced to 37 and a half from 40. So this is not nothing new. What is good to see is that this is being looked into, because when we had our hours reduced, there was no such looking into what effect it had. It was not a trial. You don't get more money, you just get less hours. And so I am so glad to see that this is being done in this way. I think it's a more responsible way of doing it, because I know for a fact that our agency use increased at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Did you want to come? Yes, Councillor Mark Howell, you have some more questions.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I'm going to refer to paragraph 55 on page 18, but it's a general question as well. With regards to the waste collection, the way I see it is that now all 100% of the actions that have to be taken are done over the 4 days instead of the 5 days. So that to me means that a higher work ratio is taking place. I am concerned that the amount of stress has been put on the bodies of those collectors, especially since we've added an extra 20% over them 4 days. Also, seen on paragraph 55 and what's going to happen by April 2025, I wonder at all if that's going to be possible.
Thank you for your question. Is it okay, Bodhi, to reply to that? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just taking the first question. Part of the reason we settled at 32 hours was to find the optimum balance. So we looked at a variety of options, 32, 34, 4 days over 5, 5 days over 4. And the outputs we're getting so far shows that there is absolutely no detrimental effect on the well-being of our crews. If anything, they actually have improved in terms of well-being. One of the reasons we're asking for the trial to be extended is that we have some sickness data now for the last 3 months that's showing a positive impact. We're just going through the winter months now. We want to continue to monitor that and just see what the impact is. Also, our workload is seasonal. So in the winter, there's a reduced workload for the people that collect the green beans. But all the evidence so far is that there's a very noticeable positive impact on their well-being. So the extra few miles they're walking every day is more than compensated for by the additional day of rest that they have. And that's evidence in the sickness levels we have seen. But we'll be able to present that in more detail in the next few months. In terms of the government legislation on food waste, when we do begin that will not be the same crews. It will be a different set of people. We cannot use the same people now to collect food waste separately. But what it means is that we have a lot more operational flexibility. So at the moment, for the domestic waste crews, we work Tuesday to Friday. For the commercial waste crews, they work Monday to Thursday and Tuesday to Friday because restaurants, businesses have collections 7 days a week. Because we have the flexibility on the Monday and Friday, we will then have a bit more control over which days are the most optimum for us to collect food waste. So that's the benefit of having that flexibility. But it will not be the same people. We need a completely different set of people, operational crews, to collect food waste when we begin to do that collection.
If you mind, Chairman, just a small comment, and I want to thank you for that very comprehensive reply. I really do appreciate that. I think my concern is a more long-term effect on people's bodies physically as opposed to the short-term mental health and well-being. I do have great concern there of the long-term physicality. There are. I'll find my next question if you go to somebody else, Chairman.
Thank you for that. I mean, I'm mindful that the trial has been going for a short time, so we will get more evidence as we go through the trial and the feedback. And I just wanted one of the things that I found interesting was the fact the same crews are doing the household waste as also doing recycling, and how that speeded up the knowledge of the rounds, and seemed to be lots of learning, as Councillor Richard Stover said, that we can embrace here. So thank you. Could I come back to you, Councillor Richard Stover?
Chair, thank you. I'm just referring now to page 40 in paragraphs 42, 43, which concerns the analysis of data that will take place following the year of the trial, or following, in a sense, a concluding moment. I do have a question, Chair, that maybe I could lead off with, but I don't want to come back and broaden it out. But the specific one is, a waste trial should really run through an entire year to cover the seasonal aspects that would make any subset of 12 months would introduce some bias. And I'm wondering if that is in the plan, that is possible, that a full 12 months of the waste trial can proceed. So maybe I just should pause there, and could you come back to me and then I'll expand.
Certainly. In terms of answer that question for you, Bode, in terms of the waste trial and the 12 months cycle?
I think that would be our preference as well, yes.
Absolutely. I think for those seasonal aspects that I mentioned, and as Councillor Mark, how the wear and tear on how we get that information. Is that satisfactory?
That's great, thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to come on to, yes, data and analysis, and we've talked a lot about data in this context for a lot of different reasons, but I just wanted to commend, the appointment, and it's an appointment or more kind of an association with Professor Brendan Birchall and his team at the Department of Sociology at the university. First of all, I welcome it. Professor Birchall is an academic with a very substantial and well-deserved reputation, and I think adds value to the project in a big way. I did want to ask a couple of things. First of all, is there a specification of the kind of analysis that Professor Birchall and his team will do? And I know we've talked about, well, the government is taking a lot of data from us, and we as yet don't know the kind of things that the government statisticians are doing. But can we, to some extent, preempt that by choosing appropriate analysis paths? And my concluding question for this set, could we meet Professor Birchall as a committee at some point and just get to know him a little bit? Thank you.
Jeff, are you able to answer that, or will that go to Anne? Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, and yes, and thank you for that question. I'll come to the last question, but I see no reason why not, and very happy to extend that invitation to the professor to come and meet with committee following this. We're in discussions at the moment about exactly how that data, you spoke about specification, exactly how that data will be analysed and assessed. So I can't give you an outline of the specification as we sit here today. That's still being talked through. Obviously, one of the things that we are very mindful of is that we have done previous data analysis in terms of the first 3 months trial, and we've got to make sure that we have that comparable information and data so that you can, as members, you can see the full length of the year trial as well, alongside that 3-month trial that was previous. So we do need to think very carefully about making sure that that data makes sense to everybody who's looking at it in line with what we've been doing previously. With regards to the DLUC data, that is an excellent question. I don't know if we can preempt what DLUC may choose to do with the data that we've been supplying to them. As mentioned, we don't have any information back from DLUC at the moment in terms of any analysis that they've undertaken of that data. We're hoping to have a meeting soon so that we can understand that further in due course. So I think from our perspective at the moment, the focus is around making sure that how we analyse and assess that data is as worthwhile and as comprehensive as we can possibly make it in order to satisfy any questions that members would have. I think trying to preempt what others may do with the data, it may lead us down routes that we then may find actually aren't answering the type of questions that you would wish to have answered as part of this exercise.
Thank you, Anne. Yes, another question?
Could I just commend that kind of caution around excessive kind of analysis, you know, trying to chase a target that we don't know necessarily. But perhaps as my final question here, this kind of extensive look at data could have some useful lessons for us in the longer term. So, you know, developing, if you will, some of our data ecosystem, it might be a good opportunity to be starting that. And I wonder if officers have taken that into account.
Thank you. Councillor Sunita Hansraj.
I see it's had a positive effect on sick leave. Am I right in thinking that?
Yes, indeed. The report that we've got after this one looks specifically at sick leave, and what we have seen is a reduction compared to last year, including in the waste service. I mean, obviously, in the winter months, you always get a slight increase in sickness, but it's lower than it was the previous year in waste. So so far, it's looking very positive.
Thank you. Members, any more questions? Excuse me, Councillor Mark Howell.
Chairman, I'm going to refer to paragraph 82 and subsection C,
Page number,
on page
please.
22.
Thank you.
And it's with regards to the longer 4-day week practice in place, is the opening couple of lines. Chairman, as you, many of us may be aware, in 1965, before many of us were born, I'm sorry, I looked at Councillor Williams then, I do apologise. Before many of us were born, 70 mile an hour was suggested for the British motorways. And once that was done, we couldn't really go back. And see this paragraph here on paragraph C, and it says how difficult it will be should we go back to a 4-day week. And it gives two things that could happen. Have we gone past now that point of no return, where going back to a 5-day week would be virtually impossible for the council?
Thank you. Jeff?
No, I don't believe that we have. One of the things that we've been very clear with all of the staff is that this is a trial and that we cannot preempt the decision of members. And we've been very clear about that, not only to our own staff, but when we're recruiting as well. We're making sure that we're being very clear about that. So, no, I don't think we've reached that position yet. The other thing, we haven't changed anybody's terms and conditions of employment. So the old ones are still in place to make sure that if members decide that this isn't appropriate for us based upon all of the information that's put before them, then we will be able to revert back. It is, as is recognised in the report, the longer it goes on, it is an increasing risk, but we're keeping people informed as to why that we're having to continue with the trial. And I think there's a commitment that as soon as we've got all of the information that would allow us to do a meaningful consultation, then we'll undertake that consultation promptly and we'll get to members and allow you to have a vote based upon all of the information available to you. So, no, we haven't reached that, but you are right that it's something that we need to keep an eye on and keep being very clear in our communication to our colleagues to ensure that they understand that.
Thank you. Members, any more questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you. Perhaps I could just gather up my remaining sort of questions. Foot of page 81, page 21, paragraph 81. There's just a review of the risks, but what I commend is something I haven't seen much before. Now maybe I just haven't been looking carefully enough, but a specific mention to an entry in the council's risk register. So first time I've seen this, and I think it's great. I think it does actually help position the risk properly in the kind of the corporate mindset. One thing, and it's really a comment in relation to Professor Birchall's work, was, and one thing we haven't done, I think, in our discussions around the 4-day week, we've often been focused on the immediate circumstances, and actually there's a lot of stuff still going on in the wider world. And I just wanted to mention, I don't think we've discussed in this committee before, but the report published by Autonomy, which is a think tank to which Professor Birchall and his group contributed. And just one thing from the many conclusions that they reached was across a whole series of 4-day week trials in the commercial sector, 60% of employees found an increased ability to combine paid work with care responsibilities. And that's something we've talked about quite a lot in the past. And I think, we have, some of us will have that recollection, when we had, maybe it's still the case, with some of us, trying to balance, care of little children and doing your full-time work. I think this just highlights one of the benefits, but it's coming from outside and it's kind of corroboration of some of the things that we're seeing internally. Now, if I could just refer, my last point, to page 29 and the well-being survey. And just a comment perhaps for, there's a comment and a question. It looks as though that the benefits to individuals through the 4-day week trial have actually held up right across the length of service. So if you look across the length of service, so even the old stages are reporting benefits. Now they are slightly different depending on the length of service, but I thought this was an intriguing kind of outcome that everybody was almost equally touched. But what does stand out is that the group possibly that are still under pressure, and this may be kind of inherent, is the part-time individuals. And I wonder if this just highlights the particular care that we need to take with part-time staff. And so to my question, are we right about the length of service kind of robustness of the 4-day week? And secondly, is there anything we should be doing extra to help part-time staff in the process?
Thank you for those questions. Jeff?
Very good questions, yes. We're due to have the next welfare survey starting in the second week of April, and it's going to be really interesting to see what's happened since the last welfare survey, whether all of the benefits have been maintained. The anecdotal evidence that we're getting is that they have, but it's going to be really interesting to see whether that's been maintained, and as you say, whether there are different groups that are benefiting in different ways and what those benefits are. So it'd be interesting to see what the results are there, and I think the plan is to bring that information to members as part of a report in July. As far as the part-time workers are concerned, yes, very, very much. We've spent a lot of time talking to part-time workers and looking at how we can be more flexible to ensure that they get the same benefits as everybody else. So we've made a number of changes. One of them, for example, to allow, rather than them to have one day off every week or a part day off every week, to have a day off every fortnight so they can get the full benefit of the reduced hours. We've made a number of other changes and we're continuing to talk to them about that. And again, what we're hoping to see in the next welfare survey is that that's had a positive effect on part-time staff, but if not, we do keep that dialogue open. We meet with the unions regularly, and when we talk about the 4-day week, that's one of the things that we too discuss. I hasten to add, what they're saying is that part-time workers have definitely seen the benefit of the 4-day week, but they want to ensure that they're getting the same improvement in benefit as full-time workers are. So that's a discussion that's continuously ongoing. And I was interested to hear about your reference to some of the other surveys that are going on at the moment. I was reading one by Ernst & Young, for example, who aren't known for their radical way of thinking, talking about how particularly AI is going to mean that actually 4-day week is likely to become within a decade the standard way of working as people start taking advantage of AI. But there's a number of other surveys that we keep on top of, which talks about what's happened with part-time workers in other 4-day-week experiments, both in this country and abroad. So we're keeping on top of that, and as new information comes out, we talk to the unions about that and implement changes if we think they would be beneficial.
Thank you, and thank you for those questions. I'm just wanting to make a comment as well. Often those people with caring responsibilities, that they're caring for the older generation as well, with families as well, and then if you link that with those people often are working part-time too, it's really important that we explore as many ways possible to make sure we're treating people equally. So thank you. Any more questions? Oh, Councillor Anna Bradman.
Thank you, Chair. I have two questions. The first is on page 22, and it comes back to the point that Councillor Stobart made, that we've, I think as a result, perhaps as a result of this committee's suggestion, this trial has been put on the risk register. And this is a kind of long-term consideration. We know, don't we, that this has been a trail-breaking trial, and we're very happy to be part of it. And let's hope, we don't know what the government's going to suggest or how the consultation will go, but it seems to have been very successful and very productive and has brought down our costs on agency staff so far. So we'll see how that happens. But I just wondered, given that just in the news recently, I've heard that a number of companies are considering working to the 4-day week. I just wondered whether in our minds we can keep in mind that it's not just the 4-day week, it's how we're working with staff that is giving us a competitive edge, that's enabling us to fill these hard-to-fill posts. And that if other companies all start to offer 4-day week, we need to bear that in mind as well, so that we can continue to offer that competitive edge, which is not just related to the 4-day week. And my second question is related, so people might want to respond to it, these two together. The second one is how much, if any, of the significant improvements that we can see in the data about how people are feeling about their health and well-being under the trial, how much of that is attributable to working 4 days instead of 5, and how much of that is related to a better working relationship with their employer? Because as an employer, we have had to, and our staff have done a huge, big effort on planning and working with staff to engage with them and to value their input and to value their time. And so just this morning, while I was eating my breakfast, I heard on the radio, linked with this, that the biggest significant indicator to people's health and well-being, particularly their mental health, other than that with their family, is their relationship with their manager. And so if what this 4-day week trial process planning has done is to improve the relationships of our colleagues with their managers, you know, please can we hang on to that as we go forward, just in case other companies will bring forward 4-day week as well. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that.
Chairman, with your permission, can I just say, are you referring to what is known as the Hawthorne effect?
Not knowingly.
I'm sure somebody...
I'm not aware of the Hawthorne effect. I was thinking of Tannenbaum and Smith, satisfiers and dissatisfiers. And basically, yes, you're exactly right. One of the things that people are most satisfied with is being trusted and valued by their employers. And it is an interesting link, because you're right, some of the benefits that we're seeing are most certainly the physical effects of working 4 days rather than 5, and some of it will be the value, how people are feeling valued by the fact that they're trusted and supported by the council. It's quite old research now, as you can tell. I studied it when I was in college, which is a frighteningly long time ago, but it's still valid. It's very interesting. What makes people satisfied with the work that they do, and you're right, people that are satisfied and feel valued are much less likely to look to leave their employer, even if there's somebody paying more nearby. They'll stay with the place where they feel valued. So yes, I think the 4-day week certainly contributes to that as well. But you're also right. Some of the other things that we've done around hybrid working, where we're trusting people to work from home and make a judgment about where they can be most effective, I think all of that gives people the message here that they're valued. And I think we've seen that, as we'll come to later on, in sort of turnover.
And thank you. So you're right. When we were first locked down, we'd already been working towards Council Anywhere. We were making sure that our staff could work from anywhere with laptops. When we had lockdown, our chief executive took the decision to enable people to work from home. And I remember it being in a meeting when it was noted that somebody was apparently sitting on the floor leaning against their sofa with their laptop on their lap. And she said, please make sure, if that's where you're comfortable, fine, but please make sure, take home any furniture you need, if you've got space, a desk, make sure. And I remember staff taking home equipment so that they could work from home. And that whole culture of trusting staff to be able to work under their own authority, but properly and diligently at home, not being overlooked by staff and trusting them, I think it caused an absolute sea change in how our staff felt about working here. So all credit to that whole change in culture, and let's hope we can continue with that. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Howell.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I'm referring to on page 45 and paragraph 3, and with regards to the survey which was carried out for the Share Weight Service in December 2023. We only received 35 responses for what is basically the largest department in the council. I think that's disappointing. I do, however, acknowledge the receipts on the table below it, which was referred to earlier on, but I do think that maybe that should be put into context of 35 responses. Thank you.
Yes, Jeff?
You're right that it's certainly disappointing. We would look to have more than that. But historically, actually, that's a really good return for waste. The challenge we always have with them, of course, is because of the nature of their work, catching them at the right time and persuading them to spend some time completing a survey is not always straightforward. But because I've got the same concerns as you, we've been talking with GMB Union about how we can make sure that people are encouraged to complete the survey that's coming up in April more thoroughly, and the GMB have agreed to play an active role in persuading people to complete that survey. So but we are hopeful that we're going to get a much better response rate in waste going forward. But as I say, historically, that's a much better response. The survey before, we got 17 responses from waste, so it's sort of
100%.
Yeah, it's 100% increase. So it's a step in the right direction. But no, I agree with you. We want as wide a survey sample as possible.
Can I ask
Sorry, excuse me.
a related question? Are they able to answer it on a mobile phone?
Yes, they've got a choice of a paper survey, or they can scan the QR code and answer it on their mobile phone.
Thank you. Do you want to turn that other question?
Yeah, it's more of a request more than anything else. When actually this comes now to us finally, whenever that may be, can I also ask for the financial implications of what we've done for the, it's cost us with regards to the surveys, the studies as well, to be included on all the papers as well. I'm not asking for it now because I'm not expecting you to know it off the top of your head. I'm asking that for the future, if that can also be scrutinised as well.
Just to point out that the staff surveys were something that we did anyway, so there's no additional costs from the surveys. I'll talk to colleagues. I mean, we've been recording, for example, time spent in project groups, and I'm sure that could be made available. I think it's been announced by the leader at a previous council, and I'm sure we can make that available in the report going forward.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Richard Stobart.
Chair, thank you. So I'm just going to refer to a point that Councillor Bradnam was making, and also refer to a point that Councillor John Williams made during council, which was really about, can we separate out in our understanding of how the 4-day week is working, the contribution made by better work organisation and the contribution made by better equipped people. And I wonder if that's something that could be put to Professor Birchall in the analysis process. But, you know, this is not engineering, and we're not dealing with, well, it is kind of, but it's not, we're not dealing with inanimate objects. These are people. And so an understanding of the data is great, but I think there's all those anecdotes and qualitative data which needs to also weigh heavily in the analysis. So I don't think we'll ever find this directly just by crunching the numbers, but listening to the stories and the sentiments of people who've been involved. So I think maybe somebody could confirm that, but I know there's some sharing of good practice on insight, which I think is great. One day, you know, we'll tell some stories about, you know, what people have done and build it into some kind of narrative around this. Maybe not just yet, but we'd just like to emphasise that the qualitative we shouldn't lose. I'm sure Professor Birchall is going to bring that kind of emphasis to the analysis process. Thought.
Thank you. And I think as members, we've probably had officers speaking to us, and I've certainly heard some very, amazing stories of how this trial has affected people's lives. So, but yeah, can I just ask, Anne, we will have some of that information as well. Thank you. Councillor Bradman.
Yes, and that brings to mind, it's funny, I hadn't really thought about it before, but I used to work in research ethics, and there were some amazing studies. This were studies where people were going to the doctor with, say, a mole, and they were being treated, but then they were being invited to attend, would they like to take part in a study, that sort of thing. And in that, we had some wonderful statisticians who understood there is the number crunching element, but there is the qualitative. There's the quantitative, which is the number crunching, and the qualitative. And there are some very clever ways of capturing written explanations of how things have changed. And I'd like to check that we are actually capturing that qualitative data, it's terribly complicated. You have to analyse what people have written and see how many times they refer to feeling happier, or, you know, it's really complicated. So I just wonder, is anything being done on that qualitative data as well? Thank you.
Anne.
I confess I am no expert in the areas we've just been delving into, but if I can ask members to let me raise those and to take those as comments back and request to see what we can include and how we'll go about that. What I would just add as well, a couple of weeks over January and February, we did what we call red team sessions, where we were talking with colleagues about some of the changes that might occur if Cabinet is so minded to agree these recommendations. And we were asking them about the 4-day week and their experiences of it. Just to say, as part of that, some of the stories that came out were really quite powerful, particularly some of the stories that relate to caring responsibilities. Now, I don't have any agreement to share those stories at the moment, and so obviously I won't today, but one of the things we would like to do is have further conversations with colleagues to see how we may be able to share those experiences and those stories in a future report, to give more of an understanding, perhaps, and a link to the findings so far of the health and wellbeing surveys, which explains a little bit more about why people are finding the 4-day week so beneficial in terms of their work-life balance and some of the other demands that they have as part of their daily lives.
Thank you. I've got a vision of a 4-day week word cloud.
Yes, exactly.
5 words that you associate with the 4-day week. Yeah. Very simple form. Members, any more comments, any questions before we move on? So what we're being asked to do is to recommend this report to Cabinet for approval. And can I take that recommendation by acclamation? So we've got, we're abstaining or against? Against. Can we show our hands for the recommendation? Thank you. So the recommendation carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, members. Okay, let's move on. We're now on to item number 6 on our agenda, which is the people recruitment retention absence data. And I think, Helen, you're going to present this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So in front of you, you have the HR statistics for Q3, so recruitment, retention and absence data. So we have amended the report in the first section to include some additional recruitment figures which were requested at the last meeting. So we've included a breakdown of the roles advertised, and that's broken down externally and internally with the average number of applications for the external roles. And whilst there are fluctuations, this does give us an indication that the trend is that we have started to receive more applications for our roles over the last period. There is one slight amendment to the report at point 14. It says about 11 apprenticeship roles which were unfilled. This should actually say unfilled within the first round of recruitment. All those roles have been filled now except for one. Obviously, we continue to be invested in our apprenticeships, and sometimes with apprenticeships, the timings of the recruitment can be affected by academic years and what people are already involved within. We've done some work with career fairs, and we are also looking at a procurement framework to broaden our access to apprenticeship providers. As you can see, we continue to seek feedback from both people starting with employment with us and leaving employment with us to continue to address any practices or concerns that people have raised. The turnover, as you can see, also has trended in a decline over the last quarter. And the final part of the report refers to sickness absence data, which I know we've already touched on. And as Jeff said, you can see a small increase from last quarter, but that would be expected due to seasonal fluctuations. Obviously, there's more things around in the winter months, but it is still showing a reduction in both shared waste and excluding shared waste on last year. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Helen. Members, questions, comments? Councillor Mark Howell. Beg pardon? Yes, please do.
Thank you. So first of all, with regards to the, sorry, I'll just go here, recruitment activity and the number of applications per external role, and it goes back to 2021. I'm really, really pleased to see that we've got no more than 10 applications for those roles. I was always told that if you've got more than 10, you haven't write the job description tight enough. And so that's very, very good. I think that should be something that we should acknowledge there. We had a small blip in May 2023, but we'll carry on with that. There is a question I want to ask as well. With regards to the new starters, I see that we had 23 new starters. This is paragraph 16, by the way. 23 new starters, 13 completed the induction survey. We weren't allowed outside the room until we had completed the induction surveys, or any other survey for that matter. I'm just wondering what happened to the other 10. That's a very general question, and I think I have one more question, but if you can just answer them first, please.
Thank you for your comment and your question.
So, yes, thank you. We don't make it mandatory, but maybe that's something that we could do, but it is separate to our induction. So we do get colleagues to all come to an induction. It's quite a new revamped induction that is now back in person in the office with a number of different representatives. So it's maybe something that we can look at getting them completed, but it does depend on the timings. Some people obviously will go to the induction that might fall in their first week and they might not have very much of an insight, whereas some people will have a better insight after a few months. But that is something that I can talk to the team about chasing up.
Chairman, very, very quickly, paragraph 24, I see there we had 6 voluntary leaders, I don't want to harp on about one person only, but somebody left dissatisfaction around through operational issues. Without getting into all the details which might identify anybody or any department, do you think that was our problem or was that more their problem?
Yeah, obviously I can't disclose any personal information, but it was something that was addressed by the department and the people team.
Any more questions? Councillor William Jackson-Wood.
Okay, that's excessively loud. Is that better? Oh yeah, we can hear. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I don't know what was going on. Sorry, thank you for the report. I'm great. I think it's great news to see that we've actually got new sort of like a larger number of applications. Hopefully that's a direct result of some of the activity around the 4-day week. My question was more around sort of the time to fill and time to hire, because I can't see that actually in the report. I don't know if that's something that we've actually been monitoring, or actually something we've seen an increase in, i.e. the actual time to fill, specifically, yeah.
Helen?
So we've obviously got a lot of data and it's potentially something that we could look at, but obviously time to fill probably gives a better indicator, whereas time to hire is obviously can depend greatly on people's notice period, and therefore sometimes we can fulfill the recruitment schedule, but obviously, you know, they still don't start with us for a number of months. So certainly something we can look into.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Anna Bradnam.
Thank you. And I suppose the other side of the coin of the point that Councillor Howell was making is that whilst you were talking about people who were leaving voluntarily, and there was one person who said the organisational arrangements didn't suit them, but at paragraph 16 on page 65, we've got the data about these are the induction, the surveys that were done on induction, and out of the 14 respondents, 10 of them said that the 4-day week had impacted their decision to apply for the role. So actually that means that you know, we have been attracting staff to recruitment, which is seems a very positive thing. And in general, you know, when you just look at the graphs above, you know, the conditions that prevailed around the 2021 data are just significantly much greener, much better. And so I think this is, as I say, I think it's not just probably the 4-day week. I think it's how we've been engaging with our staff as well. And again, I urge our leadership team to continue with that very positive approach and culture. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I just want to make a comment there because I think it links back to our previous discussions about well-being and people feeling valued, and just comment on the language being used now when we talk about the people team and people partners, and the importance of seeing people as people, because language does matter and labels matter, and so thank you for that. Yes, Councillor Richard Stobart.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm referring to the table which starts on page 62, continues on page 63, and the chart number 2, which is illustrated under item 9. I think the request to us as a committee was there any other data that we think should be collected or presented? And I couldn't give a clear answer to that. I think that the presentation in the table is useful, and helps comparison. And any clear presentation, I think, is helpful, and it has actually guided some of the questions that members have been posing. If I could just pause on chart 2 in paragraph 9. There's a rising trend. I think you'd glance at that and you'd say there's a rising trend, and the number of applications per external role is definitely going up. But there are some outliers, and what would be really helpful is to understand why those outliers are appearing. Is this an exceptional kind of recruitment situation? Or are there other factors, and in fact those two things do overlap, are there other factors in play which we should be taking into account? So we're trying to look at something kind of sideways, a slice, whether there is actually more of a landscape associated with this. And I think we probably need to be careful about trying to base trends and patterns on very limited amounts of data, and the narrative, the kind of things that Jeff and Helen have been talking about, that the narrative is sometimes more helpful than a plot. But that chart 2 on the paragraph 9 is intriguing, but it's that there's more behind it that it would be great to look into and see. And I think to the benefit of the recruitment process. So some of the kind of extraneous factors might be seasonality and availability of people. Some of the deficiencies might be down to the fact that maybe we're not reaching out far enough in our recruitment process. So I couldn't be prescriptive. That's only just a quick glance, but I'd appreciate a comment on that.
Thank you, Jeff.
Absolutely. One of the things that we're finding as we use our new HR computer system more is access to this data. It's having some of the more contextual information around recruitment is something that we're really interested in. In fact, Helen and I have a workshop next Tuesday to start looking at what further information we can get in liaison with the services to put that into context. Because, as you say, it could be impacted by a lack of general skills out there. I mean, everybody knows, for example, that there is a chronic shortage of planners. So if in one particular month we're only recruiting for planners, then the number of applicants might fall. But it could be for a number of other reasons. So, yeah, we will be looking in more detail at that contextual data, and we'll be hoping to bring a report back. I can't promise for the next Employment and Staffing Committee because there's a lot of work that needs to be gone into that to make sure that we've got accurate and properly analysed information. But it's something that we're really keen on, because I think one of the themes that have come out of this is the fact that, yes, at the moment, the 4-day week is attracting a lot of people, but Councillor Bradman is exactly right. Other people are following this this trial with a great deal of interest. And if we were to go ahead, it's likely that other people will follow eventually. And we've got to find a way to keep getting the brightest and best people to come to South Cambridgeshire. So it's something we're really interested in. Can I also respond to Councillor Hull, and apologise to Councillor Hull, because earlier on I didn't recognise the reference to the Hawthorne effect. I had a quick look, and actually I'm very aware of the phenomenon. I just didn't recognise the name, so my apologies, Councillor Hull. But yes, you're right. One of the reasons that after the 3-month trial, we then had a year-long trial. What the Hawthorne effect is, for those people that aren't aware, is people act differently when they're observed. And there's been some fascinating studies around this. But one of the things that we find there is that acting differently tails off over time. So the longer that the analysis goes on, the less impact that observation has. So by moving from a 3-month trial to a further year-long trial, any impact of the Hawthorne effect will be mitigated. So that's one of the reasons that we moved on. So my apologies for not recognising it straight away, Councillor Hull.
Thank you. That's something I won't have to look up when I get home now, so I'm very appreciative of that. Thank you. Just mindful how much we're all observed when we're in the chamber as well. So thank you. Members, any more comments or questions on the report? No? Thank you for the discussion. Thank you, everyone. So we move on, members. What we're being asked to do with this agenda item is to note the report. Can I take that by information? We agree that we're noting the report? Thank you very much for noting, and thank you for the narrative. I think is going to be really interesting when we're looking further ahead. So thank you. Members, I just wanted to make, and I do apologise, I didn't pick up on the previous discussion, the invitation for Professor Brendan Birchall for us to have a discussion, I think, so if that could be noted as well. Thank you for following that up. Thank you for the reminder. It was, again, just picking up the recommendation that we've also asked if we can have some of that data on the more wordy data rather than the sort of the numbers, so thank you for that. Okay, members, so this brings our meeting to a close. The next meeting of the Employment and Staffing Committee is on Thursday, the 30th of May. And thank you everyone for your time today. Thank you.